The following is a class on the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 20, Text 32 to 34, given by His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, recorded on January 12, 1993, in Mumbai, India.
Evam nivasatostasmin Ramakeshavayor vraje Sharat samabhavad vyabra Swacham vapharushanila. While Lord Rama and Lord Krishna were thus dwelling in Vrindavan, the fall season arrived, when the sky is cloudless, the water clear, and the wind gentle. Sharada nirajopatya nirani prakritim yayu prasthanam ivachetangsi punar yoga nisevaya. The autumn season, which regenerated the lotus flowers, also restored the various bodies of water to their original purity, just as the process of devotional service purifies the minds of the fallen yogis when they return to it. Vyomno bhram bhuta sabhalyam bhuva pankam apammalam sarajjaharashraminam krishne bhaktir yathashubham. Autumn cleared the sky of clouds. Let the animals get out of their crowded living conditions, clean the earth of its covering of mud, and purify the water of contamination, in the same way that loving service rendered to Lord Krishna frees the members of the four spiritual orders from their respective troubles. Purport. Every human being must perform the prescribed duties corresponding to one of the four spiritual orders of life. These divisions are the celibate student life, brahmacharya, married life, grihastha, retired life, vanaprastha, and renounced life, sannyas. A brahmachari must perform many menial duties during his student life, but as he becomes advanced in loving service to Krishna, his superiors recognize his spiritual status and elevate him to higher duties. The innumerable obligations performed on behalf of wife and children constantly harass a householder, but as he becomes advanced in loving service to Krishna, he is automatically elevated by the laws of nature to more enjoyable spiritual occupations, and he somehow minimizes material duties. Those in the vanaprastha or retired order of life also perform many duties, and these can also be replaced by ecstatic loving service to Krishna. Similarly, renounced life has many natural difficulties, but not the least of which is that sannyasis or renounced men are inclined to meditate on the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Klesho dhikataras tesham avyakta shakta chetasam. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifest, impersonal feature of the Lord, advancement is exceedingly painful. But as soon as a sannyasi takes to preaching the glories of Krishna in every town and village, his life becomes a blissful sequence of beautiful spiritual realizations. In the autumn season, the sky returns to its natural blue color. The vanishing of the clouds is like the vanishing of troublesome duties in brahmachari life. Just after summer comes the rainy season, when the animals sometimes become disturbed by the torrential storms and thus huddle together. But the autumn season signals the time for the animals to go to their respective areas and to live more peacefully. This represents a householder's becoming free from the harassment of family duties and being able to devote more and more of his time to spiritual responsibilities, which are the real goal of life, both for himself and his family. The removal of the muddy layer on the earth is like the removal of the inconveniences of the vanaprastha life, And the purification of the water is like the sanctification of sannyas life by one's preaching the glories of Krishna without sex desire. Atha pumbir dvijasreshtas varnashrama vibhagasha svanushtatasya dharmasya samsadir haritoshanam. That the first and foremost goal of performing all of our duties in the four varnas and ashrams is to please Krishna. Because the varnashram system arranged by Lord Sri Krishna, especially when we are speaking of ashrams or the spiritual orders, requires that every human being accept the responsibility of tapasya or austerities. Every particular ashram has unique and special austerities that are meant to purify one's heart when dovetailed in Krishna's loving service. Because after all, tapo divyam putrakayena sattvam sujedyasam brahmasokyam tvanantam, that any austerity that it is not meant in devotional service to Sri Krishna will not bear the fruit of realization in bhakti. Therefore, a devotee understands that all of these traditions, all of the various aspects of this great Vedic culture are all meant to be connected to the loving service of Sri Krishna. And a devotee in brahmachari ashram must undergo many troubles, is not treated with much respect, is asked to do the most menial services, has to live in a poverty condition. He has no will of his own. He's simply like the slave of his guru and the advanced Vaishnavas. Obviously, this is a troublesome life. But through properly executing these duties, one is purified. And through that purification, a sublime transcendental bliss awakens within the heart, which removes the inner struggle that these troubles are inflicting upon us. One becomes transcendental to any situation through brahmachari life. And the sweetness of just doing it for Krishna and pleasing Guru is so fulfilling that one welcomes whatever may come. Similarly in the Grihastha ashram, to refrain from sex life according to prescribed spiritual duties, to try to raise the family, wife, children, in such a way, maintaining very, very high spiritual principles, working very hard and being willing to sacrifice a major portion of one's income for the purpose of propagating God consciousness, charity. It is a great struggle. There are so much troubles. But because it is all done in the service of Lord Sri Krishna, in the same way, even in the midst of all difficulties and all struggles in life, business, family, so forth, there is a peace, there is a bliss, there is a wonderful, wonderful experience, and that is the experience of bhakti. And in the Vanaprastha order, performing so many austerities, living in forests, or perhaps one has just retired from all one's household duties. As children grow up, it is the duty of parents to completely separate oneself from all these material responsibilities and dedicate oneself completely to spiritual service to the Lord. And obviously this is a very difficult thing. It's painful to the heart. We have to recondition ourselves from so many years of attachment. but through the purification of doing this for Krishna, the natural joy of devotional service awakens in the heart. And also it describes that a sannyasi, how he has to control his senses, how he has to always be scrutinized by the public, how he has to maintain high standards in the face of all reversals, difficulties, shortcomings, how he has to wander like a beggar from place to place, simply preaching the glories of the Lord. So much trouble, so much difficulty. But it is described in all these 4 ashrams. All of the clouds of these troubles are removed from the heart by the awakening of Krishna consciousness. Just as during the autumn season, all of the clouds that cause so much trouble during the rainy season to all living creatures, they are all removed, and the clear, fresh, blue sky is all that remains. Similarly, in Krishna consciousness, as we advance, all the clouds of bodily designations which cause so much suffering due to the troubles we endure in this world, they are all removed. And the heart becomes like clear blue sky without clouds, transparent, fresh, where the remembrance of Krishna becomes our very natural existence. So this beautiful description of the autumn season is like the cleansing of the mind of all troublesome conditions that we must all undergo in this world. You see, in all of the 4 varnas and all of the 4 ashrams, you cannot escape the troubles. You cannot escape the austerities. Krishna consciousness does not mean going from one ashram to another to get rid of the different entanglements, but it means transcending them. It means experiencing a higher state of consciousness, Krishna consciousness, which is above and beyond all of the dualities of this world, where one's mind is so fixed in loving service to the Lord that one simply is unconcerned for obtaining any attachment other than devotional service. So in this regard, we would like to narrate a beautiful story about one of our great Vaishnava Acharyas, whose appearance day happens to be today, Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami. How by tasting the sweetness of Krishna consciousness, even from his early childhood, he was so much, although performing so many responsibilities in this world for so many long years, he was always immersed in only one thought: loving service to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that when Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling through South India, he decided to spend the 4 months of Chaturmasya in Sri Rangam, one of the great holy places where the deity of Radhanath Swami has been residing since time immemorial. While there, he happened to meet one very, very learned, gentle and saintly Brahmin. His name was Venkata Bhatt. And this Venkata Bhatt, seeing the beauty and seeing the devotion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he invited him to stay in his house, to remain there for the entire span of the Chaturmasya. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu agreed. He went to the home of Venkata Bhatt, and Venkata Bhatt, along with his 2 brothers, Prabodhananda Saraswati Tirumala Bhatt, and his son Gopal Bhatt, they washed the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And after washing his lotus feet, he distributed this water. And when Gopal Bhatta tasted the water from the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, immediately ecstatic love awakened in his heart. His limbs began to tremble and tears began to flow from his eyes. Although he was only 7 years old at the time, he became so much attached to the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he could not bear being separated from him even for a moment. So Venkata Bhatt was so very pleased to see his son's devotion to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he personally dedicated his son at the feet of Lord Chaitanya. He surrendered him. He is yours. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted Gopal Bhatt to be his own personal servant. And day and night Gopal Bhatt would just be immersed in doing every type of possible service he could for the pleasure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Through his heart, natural devotion became so intensified that his particular mood was he could not bear thinking that Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, had appeared as a sannyasi with shaved head, with saffron cloth, performing the tapasya of Chaturamasya. It was painful for him. But he had heard about the wonderful Leela of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip, when he had long, beautiful, flowing hair, beautiful golden robes. He was with his eternal consort, Vishnu Priya, and he was dancing and chanting in the streets and enjoying wonderful, loving relationships. He was simply crying and praying that my Lord Krishna, my Lord Sri Chaitanya, why am I so sinful that I was never able to see your beautiful Leela of Navadvip? Why I am so sinful that I have to see you performing all these austerities as a sannyasi? I want to enter into this Navadvip Leela, where you are the supreme enjoyer, not the supreme renouncer. So one day when Gopal Bhatt was taking rest, he had a dream. And in this dream, he entered into Sri Navadvip Dham. And there Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very gracefully strolling down the streets of Navadvip. And he was along his side. And then Sri Advaita and Nityananda, they both embraced lovingly Gopal Bhatt with their arms. And they began to whisper something very confidential in his ear. But just as they were about to speak it, he woke up from his dream. He was so blessed by this darshan, he ran to the lotus feet of Lord Gaur Sundar, and he fell at his lotus feet. And when he got up in a prayerful mood, he saw right before his eyes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu transformed his form to that of Sham Sundar, the Lord of Vrindavan. And there he saw him with a beautiful complexion, like the dark blue rain cloud, lotus eyes bedecked with peacock feather, holding his flute, with a dhoti which was like lightning. Gopal Bhatta, upon seeing this beautiful form, was just enraptured in ecstatic love. And moments later, that form transformed again to the Lord of Sri Navadvip Dham, Gaur Sundar, where he appeared with a beautiful, effulgent, golden complexion, eyes blooming like lotus petals, beautiful ears. Every limb of his body was swaying to and fro to the transcendental kirtan of the holy name, his beautiful hair flowing down his shoulders, beautiful lotus feet, his neck decorated by an enchanting malati garland. And then Gopal Bhatta, unable to contain himself, he fell in prostrated obeisances at the lotus feet of Lord Gaura Sundar. And when he looked up, there again, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in his form as a sannyasi. And Gopal Bhatta Goswami, so grateful that all of his desires had been fulfilled, began to offer beautiful prayers. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him that very soon you should go to Vrindavan. There you should take shelter of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami. And he said that for now though, you must stay here and take care of your parents. But in due course of time, all your desires will be fulfilled. He said, when you meet Rupa and Sanatan, you will become like their brother, and you will make many, many, many disciples. So they will write so many wonderful books, and through your disciples, these books will be distributed all over the world. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took this 7-year-old child upon his lap and began to weep in love. And Lord Gaur Sundar bathed him with his tears. So in this way, Gopal Bhatta, for the remaining of the Chaturmasya, was the constant associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But then as the rainy season began to come to an end, Venkata Bhatt, Prabodhananda Saraswati, Tirumala Bhatt, and Gopal Bhatt, they realized that very soon Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would leave them. They were wondering, how will we survive? What will we do? Who will accompany us to the river Kaveri to take our bath? Without him, who will be with us to perform the beautiful Sankirtan of chanting and dancing in the temple of Ranganath? Who will give us the remnants of his Mahaprasad? How will we live without the beautiful sight of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So in this way, imminent separation was growing in all of their hearts. And then that fateful day came when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he departed to continue his journey. Meanwhile, Sri Gopal Bhatta accepted his uncle, Prabodhananda Saraswati, as his spiritual master. He received initiation from him. He studied the Shastra from him. He learned all the principles of Vaishnavism from him. And soon he became such an incredible devotee. He was able to narrate the glories of Sri Chaitanya and the glories of Radha and Krishna in such a way, with such scholarship and such feeling and devotion, that soon his name became famous throughout all the country of India. And after years went by, when he was a young man, his mother and father, they told him that now you have our permission, you go to Vrindavan. And then they both passed from this world. Now it is very interesting, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Gopal Bhatta Goswami before he ever met Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew past, present, and future. He was telling Gopal Bhatta Goswami that this Rupa and Sanatana, they will be writing literatures, you will be distributing them. He said, you join them in Vrindavan, become their brother. But at the time, he had never met them. He had never received any letters from them at that time. They were still government officials under the Nawab Hussain Shah. But for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, past, present, and future do not exist. He is the knower of everything. Trikala Gyan. So after the parents had left this world, Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami, with great jubilation, he went to Vrindavan Dham. And when he arrived, Rupa and Sanatan greeted him with such love and affection, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already told them that this Gopal Bhatta would be soon coming. So one day it is explained in Nilachala, Jagannath Puri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had just come from the Jagannath temple, and he went to the temple of Tota Gopinath, which is also the residence of Sri Gadadhar Pandit. And Gadadhar Pandit was the life and soul of all the Vaishnavas. He had such intimate, loving relationships with Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Srivas Thakur, everyone. And they would regularly come to his home and they would discuss Krishna Katha. So on this one day they were all sitting together, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that it has been a long time since I have heard any news from Braj Bhumi. I wonder why that is. And just at that moment a messenger came from Vrindavan with a letter from Rupa and Sanatan, which said that Gopal Bhatta, who is a reservoir of all auspicious divine qualities, has just arrived in Vrindavan. We have accepted him as our brother, and such qualities are not of this world, such divine devotion and such renunciation of any material attachments he has. He has immediately accepted the principles of a Goswami, and we are all very much overjoyed and glad to be in his company. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy, and he began to explain to all of his devotees the virtues and the glories of this Gopal Bhatta. And then he sent with the messenger special heartfelt gifts. He gave his own kopin or loincloth, and he gave a wooden sitting table that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sit on, and he sent them. And when the letter and the gifts came to the Goswamis in Vrindavan, they were very much jubilant. And Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he was so happy that for the rest of his life he worshipped this kopin and this sitting place as non-different than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And to this day, these two gifts are on the altar of the Radharaman temple in Vrindavan, carefully worshipped by his disciples. So Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he became one of the 6 Goswamis of Braj Bhumi. And he was given intimate service to Govinda Dev, the deity of Srila Rupa Goswami. But he decided that he wanted in his own place the form of Sri Krishna to worship. So he went on a long, long journey with his bare feet, all the way to the very, very high platforms of the Himalayas where the Gandaki river flows. And there he obtained 12 Shalagram Shilas, and he brought them back to Vrindavan. After this long journey, he returned to Vrindavan, and just when he was about to worship the Shalagram Shila, he began to think, I am not qualified to do this seva. And then he thought it was a mistake that I have brought these Shalagram Shilas. This was his humility. So he went all the way back to the Nepal, all the way back to the Gandaki river, and he placed the Shalagrams very carefully. But just as he placed them in the river, they just jumped from the river back into his hands, all 12 of them. Then he placed them back, and again they jumped into his hand. He placed them back 4 times, they jumped into his hand. Then he understood that Shalagramji wants to go to Vrindavan. So he brought them all back to Braj Bhumi. And there he was worshipping them with great love and devotion. But one time, a very wealthy devotee, Vaishnava, came, and he was giving beautiful crowns and flutes and jewelry and all sorts of ornaments to all the deities of the 6 Goswamis. And he also gave to Gopal Bhatta Goswami. But Gopal Bhatta was thinking, how can I decorate a Shalagram Shilas with these? One night he was praying that as all of my brothers, Rup, Sanatan and others, I would like to also offer my love and decorate you and worship you in such a way, if it is so your desire. And then he took rest that night. And then the next morning he went to the Jamuna to bring water, to bathe Thakurji. And when he returned from the Jamuna, he saw that his prominent Shila, which is called a Damodar Shila, had completely transformed into the beautiful form of the threefold bending flute player, Sri Krishna. And when he saw this beautiful, beautiful Murti, he was struck with wonder and ecstatic love. And he called the Goswamis, And very soon Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Lokanath Goswami, Bhugarbha Goswami, Kashishwar Goswami, all of the great Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they all assembled, and they were struck with wonder to see this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful form of Krishna playing his flute. And Srila Rupa Goswami, he was asked to name the Murti. And he said, because this beautiful form of the Lord has appeared in Vrindavan, near the Nidhiban, the place of the Ras Leela, he will be named Radharaman, one who always gives pleasure to Sri Radharani. So Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami was worshipping Sri Radharaman with great attention and devotion, completely absorbed in his loving service. But one day he began to feel guilty because his father, Venkata Bhatt, made him promise that throughout his life he would always worship the beautiful form of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was thinking, I am worshipping Krishna, but I am not properly worshipping Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So while he was thinking that way, sitting in the presence of Sri Radharaman, right before his eyes, the Murti of Radharaman transformed into the beautiful form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give darshan. And then again transformed to Sri Radharamanji. And then Gopal Bhatta Goswami was perfectly, completely satisfied to know that in worshipping Krishna he was worshipping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gopal Bhatta Goswami spent his life in Vrindavan. He had many very, very great and celebrated disciples, one of which was Srinivas Acharya, who after Rupa and Sanatan and Jiva Goswami left this world, Srinivas Acharya became the leader of Gaudiya Vaishnavas all over. He was a disciple of Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Gopal Bhatta Goswami also wrote many, many wonderful Vaishnava literatures describing the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna, the glories of Vrindavan. Especially he wrote many literatures. He helped, along with Sanatan Goswami, to compile the Hari Bhakti Vilas, which describes the highest principles of Vaishnava etiquette. It also explains the importance of deity worship and the proper process of deity worship. In fact, Hari Bhakti Vilas is a guide for Vaishnavas by which all of the details of proper Vaishnava behavior is described. And Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he had many, 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 many disciples, as was foreseen by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And to this day at the Sri Radharaman temple, the descendants of his disciples are still doing the puja. It is described that he had one disciple named Gopinath Pujari, who was also a celibate. And Gopal Bhatta Goswami was thinking that there should be some insurance that the worship of Sri Radharaman will always go on very carefully after I leave. So the brother of Gopinath Pujari, his name was Damodar. He was married. And Sri Gopal Bhatta, he authorized that the descendants of Damodar will be very well trained throughout the generations to worship Sri Radharamanji. And actually of all the temples of Vrindavan, there is no doubt that without comparison, Sri Radharaman has the highest standard of puja, the purest deity worship of all of the ancient Goswami temples of Brajbhumi. And this was all by the very expert vision and management of Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, even 450 years before. He made certain rules and policies which today, not a single piece of jewelry in 450 years has ever been lost or stolen. Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyugo Sri Jiva Gopalago. And during his life, a beautiful temple was built at that site. But the most wonderful thing about Sri Gopal Bhatta and the 6 Goswamis is how, even though so many facilities were coming to them by wealthy Vaishnavas to build beautiful temples, to have gorgeous puja, deity worship. They still remained in the same simple, austere consciousness, still satisfied simply to sleep under trees, still satisfied to simply hardly eat the basic necessities to maintain body and soul, still always engrossed, no politics, no greed, no prestige. They were simply interested in coming together to have kirtan, to discuss Krishna Katha, and to always be absorbed in helping one another to remember the beautiful pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Radha and Krishna. In this way, they set the highest example of pure devotional service. Today, if you go to a place in Braj Bhumi called Sanket, there is an underground cave. To get into it, you have to crawl. You cannot walk. You have to crawl. Otherwise you will break your back against the rocks. And when you go into this cave, it's very small. It's pitch dark. There's no ventilation. Oftentimes there's scorpions, snakes under the ground. Although Gopal Bhatta had beautiful temple in Vrindavan, he would spend months upon months upon months just sitting in this cave doing his bhajan under the ground. No human being could perform such bhajan today. You can imagine in the summer season, there's no air down there. Even today when you go, it's hard to breathe. And no light. And also, where would he get his food? Sanket in those days was just a deep, dark, dense forest. It is a place where Sri Radha and Krishna had a marriage. Of course, it was not an authorized marriage, but the gopis used to perform marriage ceremonies for Radha and Krishna at Sanket. They would have beautiful conjugal pastimes there. And Gopal Bhatta, in this dark, dark forest, where would he get food? Where would he get water? But he was very content. He was doing his bhajan, chanting the holy names, meditating on Sri Krishna, writing his books, arranging a precedent for the whole world to follow for all history through his example and his words. And yet he had so many disciples. But even the greatest Babajis and the greatest sadhus of Braj Bhumi, when they see the cave of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, they all unanimously say, nobody can do this. No one could imitate what the 6 Goswamis have done. No one could survive for a day in those conditions. And yet willingly, they were so engrossed in ecstatic love of Radha and Krishna, so much engrossed in the meditation on how to deliver all living beings, that they endured such austerity, such tapasya. So in this way, even today when we go to Vrindavan, we find the bhajan kutir of Gopal Bhatta Goswami at Sanket. We find his beautiful samadhi close to Radharaman temple. We find the beautiful original murti of Sri Radharaman, special murti. All of the other Goswamis' murtis were very big. Therefore, when the Muslims invaded Vrindavan, they all had to be taken to Jaipur secretly. But Sri Radharaman appeared in a very convenient size, less than 12 inches in tall. So when the Muslims came, they could easily hide him. He was never found. The worship went on, as always, even despite the greatest persecution and terrorism throughout all of Vrindavan, where all deities were being smashed, temples were being destroyed, Vaishnavas were being killed. But the pujaris went on with their seva. So to this day, practically the only of the original Goswamis' murtis that are still remaining in Vrindavan is Sri Radharaman. And the very place in Vrindavan where he appeared from the Damodar Shila is still there. And this is one of the biggest festivals in all of Braj Bhumi, the appearance day of Sri Radharaman, that is celebrated Tens and thousands of people come to Radharaman temple for this occasion every year. Beautiful festival, wonderful kirtans, wonderful prasad, wonderful everything. So we see that these great Goswamis of Vrindavan, how their influence is still so much alive today in the places of their lila, in the festivals and the devotion of their followers, but especially in the divine remembrance that is constantly cherished in the heart by all Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Gopal Bhatta Goswami, although he was so magnanimous, so illustrious, and so prominent in Vrindavan, there's hardly anything written of him. The reason is Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, before beginning the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he wanted to receive the blessings of all the senior Vaishnavas of Brij Bhumi. He would not write unless every one of them gave their blessings. So when he approached Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he was so senior and so deeply loved by everyone, Gopal Bhatta Goswami said, I will give you my heartfelt blessings, but under one condition, that you do not describe me in your book, that you write nothing about me. In order to honor Gopal Bhatta Goswami, in the mood of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, we should remember the great gift and the priceless treasure which has been left behind by the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. And we should pray for their causeless mercy again and again and again, and the mercy of those empowered representatives that are in this very day bestowing their grace upon us. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And as we are reading about the beautiful qualities of Vrindavan from the Srimad Bhagavatam, how much we owe to the 6 Goswamis, because they are the ones that revealed Vrindavan to the world. It was Rup, Raghunath, Sanatan, Gopal Bhatta, Jiva, Raghunath Bhatta. It was these 6 Goswamis that brought Vrindavan to the light of the world. Otherwise, it was practically completely forgotten. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered the 6 Goswamis to write literatures about the glories of Vrindavan, to excavate the holy places of Vrindavan, to establish temple and deity worship in Vrindavan, and to establish the highest principles of Vaishnava behavior in Vrindavan. So factually, of all the sampradayas, everyone owes so much of a debt to the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, because they are the ones who have revealed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's vision of Vrindavan to the entire world. They are the ones who have made it a holy place. They are the ones who have explained in proper perspective the truth of Vrindavan Leela and pure Bhakti. Is there any questions? Guna Manjari, one of the Manjari associates of Sri Radharani, and the 8 Sakis, the 8 most confidential expansions of Sri Radharani. Each one of them have special manjaris that assist them in the service of Radharani and Krishna. And Gopal Bhatta is most commonly understood to be Guna Manjari, although some say he is Ananga Manjari. Any other questions? Both. Depends on your bhava. It particularly in this sense means Krishna who is giving pleasure to Sri Radharani. Because you see in that area of Vrindavan, during the Ras Leela, Sri Radharani left the Ras dance, and there Krishna found her and began to decorate her with beautiful flowers, and began to decorate her hairs and put all sorts of nice ornaments on her. this part of Vrindavan is a place where Krishna would do seva for Sri Radharani for her pleasure. So because he appeared in that place, Srila Rupa Goswami gave the name Sri Radharaman. Haribo.